So, good evening. So we shall now look at the limitations of CAPM. Let us write something brief. So not limit, but applications of CAPM. So we can now look at the applications of CAPM. We can now look at the applications of CAPM. So we shall simply summarize them and see what we can do after getting the app. So number one, among the applications of CAPM, number one will be pricing of securities. Pricing of the securities. Pricing of the securities, i.e., whether they are overvalued, undervalued, or correctly valued, whether they are undervalued, overvalued, or correctly valued, The number two will be investment decisions. Number two will be investment decisions. So number two. So I'd said number one was the pricing of the securities, and we say that i.e. whether they are overvalued, undervalued, or correctly valued. The number two, we are saying that investment decisions. So it is applied to determine, the discounting rate, that will be used to evaluate the capital investment. Number three will be cost of capital. So under the cost of capital, we summarize that it is used to determine the cost of capital. I.e., cost of equity, cost of the debenture, and cost of the preference shares. The next one will be that to evaluate the portfolios. So under that, we summarize that it is used to evaluate the portfolio. In order to establish if they are profitable, whether they are profitable or non-profitable, so as to change the composition of the portfolio. The next one will be efficiency of the portfolio. So for that, we summarize that it is used to determine whether the portfolios are super efficient. Whether they are super efficient, efficient or inefficient. Whether they are super efficient, or inefficient. So let us now have differences between portfolio theory and the CAPM. we can now have the difference between the portfolio theory and CAPM. We can now look at the differences between portfolio theory and CAPM. So one side, you can have portfolio theory, the other side, CAPM. You can divide it into two. We can separate them. So number one, on the side of the portfolio theory, we summarize that. Number one, on the side of the portfolio theory, we summarize that it deals with the business or total risk. It deals with business or total risk. It deals with business or total risk, i.e., undiversified portfolio, i.e., the undiversified portfolio. So it deals with the business or total risk, i.e., undiversified portfolio. On the other side is that CAPM. It deals with systematic risk. It deals with the systematic risk. It deals with the systematic risk, i.e., diversified portfolios, i.e., the diversified portfolios. Then number two, on the side of the portfolio theory, we summarize that risk is measured using the standard deviation. Risk is measured using the standard deviation. Risk is measured using the standard deviation. That's now under the portfolio theory. Sorry. We're going to discuss deviation. Yeah, we all come from different regions. The pronunciation may be different. So it is the standard deviation that we have been using in calculating. Yeah, so that's what we are referring to. Then on the side of CAPM, we write that risk is measured using the beta factor or coefficient. Risk is measured using the beta factor or coefficient. Risk is measured using the beta factor or coefficient. The number three on the side of the portfolio theory is that it uses the capital market line equation. It uses the capital market line equation. It uses the capital market line equation to estimate the returns. To estimate the returns. On the side of CAPM, we write that it uses the security market line equation. It uses the security market line equation. It uses the security market line equation to determine the returns of the security. It uses the security market line equation to determine the returns of the security. Then the next one on the side of the portfolio theory is that the standard deviation of the market, the standard deviation of the market is not equal to 1. The standard deviation of the market is not equal to 1. Then on the other side, we write that the beta factor of the market is equal to 1. The beta factor of the market is equal to 1. The beta factor of the market is equal to 1. The next one on the portfolio theory, is that the standard deviation of the portfolio, is the weighted average. The standard deviation of the portfolio is the weighted average. Weighted average or weighted difference. It is the weighted average or the weighted difference. Then on the side of CAPM is that the beta factor of the portfolio, is always the weighted average. The beta factor of the portfolio is always the weighted average. The beta factor for the portfolio is always the weighted average. So those are the key differences. Let us now have a subtopic as portfolio performance measures. We now look at the portfolio performance measures. We can now go to the portfolio performance measures. So we shall be looking at some index which we normally apply in order to measure the performance of the portfolio. So under the portfolio performance measures, we summarize that the following steps are normally adopted. The following steps are normally adopted. The following steps are normally adopted when evaluating the portfolio performance. The following steps are normally adopted when evaluating the portfolio performance. When evaluating the portfolio performance. Number one would be that estimate the expected performance of the portfolio. So the first step is that estimate the expected performance of the portfolio. Estimate the expected performance of the portfolio at the beginning of the performance evaluation period. At the beginning of the performance evaluation period. At the beginning of the performance evaluation period. The number two will be that measure the actual performance achieved. Measure the actual performance achieved. Measure the actual performance achieved at the end of the evaluation period. Measure the actual performance achieved at the end of the evaluation period. At the end of the evaluation period. At the end of the evaluation period. Then finally, number three is that evaluate the portfolio performance. Evaluate the portfolio performance. Evaluate the portfolio performance by comparing. So evaluate the portfolio performance by comparing the actual and expected. By comparing the actual and the expected. Then we continue on the same by noting that a new paragraph, sorry. The most common methods used in evaluating portfolio performance. Most common methods used in evaluating portfolio performance and mutual funds, portfolio performance and the mutual funds managers will include. So the most common methods used in evaluating the portfolio performance and the mutual funds managers will include. So there are some of them are Greek words. I want us to identify them, then we list them, then we discuss each. So probably go to the sitting of August 2022. Just check in your past papers, we list them. So just check what is there in August 2022. Question number 5, part C. Question 5, part C, we list them. So number 1, it is the Sharpe's performance measure. We just list them. It's on the first page, isn't it? Yeah, it is on page 4. So number 1 is the Sharpe's performance measure. I hope you can see that. Yeah, number 2, just list them, then we discuss each one separately. Then the first one, they have indicated there. They are Greek words. So the first one is meant to be the Sharpe's performance measure. And number two, you can see it is the Trinian's performance measure. And number three is normally Genesis performance measure. Number three will be the Jensen's performance measure. Jensen's performance measure. Then number four will be appraisal ratio. So number four is supposed to be the appraisal ratio or information ratio. Number four should be appraisal ratio or information ratio performance measure. So let us start with number one. Let us start off with number one. So number one is what they have listed there as the Sharpe's performance measure. So we start with the first one, is meant to be the Sharpe's performance measure. So all of them will be using the portfolio theory or CAPM, but most likely the security market line. So under the Sharpe's performance measure, we summarize that it indicates the portfolio, it indicates the portfolio excess returns. It indicates the portfolio excess returns. It indicates the portfolio excess returns generated above the risk-free rate, above the risk-free rate, above the risk-free rate, above the risk-free rate of the portfolio, above the risk-free rate of the portfolio as measured by the standard deviation as follows, as measured by the standard deviation as follows, as measured by the standard deviation as follows. So I will simply simplify the formulas. So to compute the Sharpe of the portfolio, the Sharpe for the portfolio will be equal to the expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate. We divide by the standard deviation of the portfolio. When you want to compute the Sharpe for the portfolio, it is simply expected return of the portfolio. We subtract the risk-free rate, but we divide by the standard deviation of the portfolio. So it is just an index that we shall be computing. Then we add there a paragraph by noting that this index is compared with the market index. This index is compared with the market index. It is compared with the market index. It is compared to the market index, which is expressed as follows. The market index, which is expressed as follows. The market index, which is expressed as follows. So the Sharpe for the market, it is simply expected return of the market minus the risk-free rate. We divide by the standard deviation for the market. So to get the Sharpe for the market, simply take expected return for the market minus the risk-free rate. Then we divide by the standard deviation for the market. We divide by the standard deviation for the market. So all these terms are familiar to us. We used them in the previous classes. So when you want to get the Sharpe for the market, simply get the expected return for the market. You subtract the risk-free rate. We divide by the standard deviation of the market. Then we also comment that the final decision will be made as follows. The final decision will be made as follows. The final decision will be made as follows. it will be made as follows. So the first dash, we say that if the Sharpe of the portfolio is greater than the Sharpe of the market. If the Sharpe for the portfolio is greater than the Sharpe of the market, then it indicates superior performance. So if the Sharpe of the portfolio is greater than the Sharpe for the market, then it indicates superior performance. Then it indicates superior performance. Then the second dash is that if the Sharpe of the portfolio is less than the Sharpe of the market. So if the Sharpe for the portfolio is less than the Sharpe for the market, then it indicates inferior performance. Then it indicates inferior performance. Then it indicates inferior performance. Then the last one, you comment that if the Sharpe of the portfolio is equal to the Sharpe of the market. If the Sharpe of the portfolio is equal to the Sharpe of the market, then it indicates efficient performance. Then it indicates efficient performance. Then it indicates efficient performance. Then another paragraph, we summarize that the higher the measure of the portfolio, the higher the measure of the portfolio, the higher the measure of the portfolio, the better the performance, the better the performance, the better the performance. The higher the measure of the portfolio, the better the performance. Then you continue on the same point by writing that this measure deals with the total risk. It deals with the total risk. It deals with the total risk as measured by the standard deviation. This measure deals with the total risk as measured by the standard deviation. As measured by the standard deviation. Therefore, it operates effectively. Therefore, it operates effectively under the assumptions of the portfolio theory. Therefore, it operates effectively under the assumptions of the portfolio theory. It operates effectively under the assumptions of the portfolio theory. So I want us to go back now to that question of August 2022. That question 5, part C. So we can go to that question number 5, part C. We can check through the question number 5, part C. We can go through the question number 5, part C. So we come back after, because now it is 6:30. So we come back at 6:40. Sorry? Okay, so we can have a short break for that, for those who are waiting for the prayers.
Yes. Yeah.
So we can now go through the question. So question number 5, part C. Question number 5, part C. Question 5, part C. So the question reads that the following information relates to the performance of 3 portfolios. That is A, B, and C. So during the year ended 30th June 2022. So they gave you portfolio A, B, and C. Average returns are the same as the expected returns. The average returns would be the expected returns. You have been given the standard deviation, also covariance of the portfolio return with the market returns. Then additional information, not number 1. Additional information, not number 1. They have said that the market return and the risk-free rate, it averaged 14% and 7% respectively during the year 30th June 2022. So not number 2, the standard deviation of the market is given as 10%. So required, evaluate the performance of the 3 portfolios using Roman letter 1, the Sharpe's performance measure. Roman letter 2, the Trinia. So we are only dealing with the Roman letter 1 when we are dealing with the Sharpe's performance measure. So according to that measure, according to that particular measure, to compute the Sharpe of the portfolio. So the Sharpe of the portfolio, it is simply expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate. Then divide by the standard deviation of the portfolio. So we compute for each one of them. So we start with the one of A. Start with the one of A. So A, You can see average return is the same as the expected return, where they gave you 17.55%. You have 17.55%. Risk-free rate, when you check down there in the note number 1, they gave us what percent? Not number, the market return and risk is 14, and yes, that means it is what? It is 7. Then divide by the standard deviation of A. Standard deviation for A is given as what? But so we have that value and see what we get from that question. So 0.3, 0.35. So that will be for A. So we go to B. So B, you are given a return of 13.26. So you also subtract the risk-free rate, which is meant to be 7. Then we divide by the standard deviation, which is given as 34. So you get the value for that. Then we also do the same for C. The one for C, average return or expected return is 9.34. We subtract 7, then we divide by the standard deviation of that portfolio C. They gave us 20 what? So you compute them. So I will also compute the one for the market. I'll also compute the one for the market. Also compute the one for the market. So the one for the market, remember the sharp for the market, you simply take expected return of the market minus the risk-free rate, divide by the standard deviation for the market. So you also compute the one for the market. So expected return for the market, when you check down there in the note number 1, market return is what? So it is 14. Risk-free rate is still 7. The standard deviation is given as what? 10. The standard deviation for the market in the note number 2, we gave you 10. So we get now the value for that. Get the value for that. So you want to know their performance. So is their index greater or less than the one for the market? The one for the market is higher. Yes. Yeah. So we need now to make a comment based on that. So normally, when it is left open, you just rank the one the highest will be the first one. That's in case we ask you to play rank. But now you have said all of them are less than the one for the market. Yeah, so we can now make a conclusion by summarizing that they indicate inferior performance. They indicate inferior performance since their index is less than the market. Their index is less than the market. Yeah, I hope that's what you can see from what you have calculated. Yes. Yeah, so that was now on that Roman letter 1. So I want us to get another similar question. And see what else can we get from it. So the next question I want us to check, go to November 2020. Question number 2, part A. We can also check November 2020. We got to November 2020. Question number 2, part A. November 2020, question number 2, part A. So that question 2, part A for November 2020, you are given details that the following information relates to 2 mutual funds operating in your country. The following information relates to 2 mutual funds operating in your country. You are given Omega mutual fund and Beta mutual fund. So realized return is the expected return. Realized returns are the expected returns. So they are giving us the expected, that realized return will be expected return. They gave you the beta factor, also the standard deviation. So additional information, note number 1, return on the market index is 12, but risk-free rate is 8. So now required for each of the above mutual funds, compute the following performance index score. So this one is the Roman letter 3. It is the Roman letter 3. We are first dealing with the Sharpe. So let us go to the Roman letter 3, the Sharpe index for the fund and also the market. So we also want to compute the Sharpe index for the fund and also the one for the market. Also the one for the market. So we start with the Sharpe of each one of them. So we have said that the Sharpe for the portfolio or the fund will be expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate divided by the standard deviation for the portfolio. So we start with the Omega mutual fund. We start with Omega. So Omega, you can see the realized return. They gave you 13. Risk-free rate in the note number 2. They gave us 8. Then I want you to confirm the standard deviation for Omega. They gave you 19. Get the value for that. Get the value for that. The next one is beta. The next one is meant to be for beta. So for beta, the realized return is 18. Risk-free rate is 8. The standard deviation for beta is given us which value? 15. They gave you 50. So that should be able to give you for beta. But they also wanted for the market. Remember, you are also meant to compute for the market. So when it comes to the market, some information is not there, but we should first present it. So the one for the market, we said it is expected return for the market minus the risk-free rate divided by the standard deviation for the market. So if you want to compute the Sharpe for the market, so expected return for the market in the note number 1. Return on the market index is in the note number 1. They gave you 12. Risk-free rate is still 8, but your standard deviation for the market was not provided. So we just leave it because we cannot do anything about it. The question is the so what do we do? We just leave it at that point. We don't have to spare much because it is not our mistake. They have not given the standard deviation for the market. So when you go through the question, no information is provided about the standard deviation for the market. So we just do it, give them the expression the way it is. Then, because it is not there, they'll give you the full marks once you get to that point. There is nothing we can do about it. We cannot get our own figure, so we just come up with that expression. So that should be now the Roman letter 3. That's now what was meant to be the Roman letter 3. So before we go to the next performance measure, let us get one more last question on that. The other question I want you to check is May 2017, question number 2, part B. We also check May 2017, question number 2, part B. So May 2017. So that one should be on page It should be on page 56. It should be on page 56. May 2017, question number 2, part B, is there on page 56. So that page 56, they have part B. The following information relates to the performance of the 6 portfolios over the 7-year period. So there are portfolio PQRSTU, market return risk-free rate. Average annual return is your expected return. Then standard deviation of the average annual return is given. Correlation with the market return is given. So required, rank the performance of the above portfolios using Roman letter 1, the Sharpe's method. So we just deal with the Roman letter 1 when we apply the Sharpe method. So you arrange it in this order. We arrange the information in this order. So we shall be having the column for the portfolio. We shall be having the column for the portfolio. Then apart from that, now the Sharpe of the portfolio, it is expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate, then the standard deviation of the portfolio. Then now we shall do the ranking. We also include there the column for the ranking like that. Now include the column for them. So we get the portfolio, the Sharpe for the portfolio, because finally we also wanted to include them ranking. So you can see the portfolios. The first one is P. The first portfolio there is P. So we start off with portfolio. So what is realized return or average return for P? 18.6. So you take 18.6 minus the risk-free rate. Are you able to see down the risk-free rate of return? Yes. They have given us 9. You can see it at the end of those arrangements before required. Yeah, so you subtract 9, then confirm the standard deviation of portfolio P. Yeah, so just divide by 27. So you can round them off into 2 decimal places. In case they have so many of them, you can round them off into 2 decimal places. 0.33. 0.3. Yeah, so we shall first calculate for all of them before you do the ranking. When you will be doing the ranking, the one with the highest will make it number 1. So you have to calculate for all of them first. So the next one is Q. The next one is Q. When it comes to Q, you will be able to take 14.8. 14.8 minus 9. So this one we divide by 18. Divide by 18. So there is R, there is also S, there is T, and also U. So compute for all of them. There is P, Q, R, S, T, and U. Then you give the rank. So this time we shall not include the market because they only wanted the rank. So when you rank, which one is number one? Sorry? U is number one. Then number two will be. So I've been told U is number one. R is number two. Then S is number three. Sorry? B is number four. B is number four. Then number five. So your T itakuwa 6. Yeah, so that should be now the ranking. So they only wanted you to do the ranking. So the one with the highest, you rank it as number one. The one with the highest, we rank it as number one. So that is now how you are to do. So let us now go to the second measure. The second measure is now the Trinius method. We got the second portfolio performance measure. We had outlined them. There were 4 of them. So we got the second measure, which is supposed to be the Trinius method or performance measure. So we got to number 2, the Trinius performance measure. So for the Trinius performance measure, we summarize that it indicates the excess returns. It indicates the excess returns generated by the portfolio. It indicates the excess returns generated by the portfolio, above the risk-free rate, above the risk-free rate, above the risk-free rate per unit of the portfolio, above the risk-free rate per unit of the portfolio, per unit of the portfolio risk, per unit of the portfolio risk, as measured by the beta factor, as measured by the beta factor, as measured by the beta factor, and it is expressed as follows. And it is expressed as follows. And it is expressed as follows. So when you want to compute the Trinia of the portfolio, so Trinia of the portfolio, the Trinia for the portfolio is equal to expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate. So this time around, we divide by the beta factor of the portfolio. So all information remain in that. Now, instead of the standard deviation, we use what? The beta factor. Then we come up with that value. Then now we add there a paragraph by summarizing that this index is compared with the market index. This index is compared with the market index. This index is compared to the market index, which is expressed as follows. It is compared with the market index, which is expressed as follows. Which is expressed as follows. So the Trinia of the market will be equal to expected return of the market minus the risk-free rate divided by the beta factor for the market. So the Trinia for the market, it is simply expected return for the market minus the risk-free rate divided by the beta. But from our notes, we say that the beta for the market is always equal to 1. So which means you end up getting expected return for the market minus the risk-free rate. So because it is 1, you just go away with it because it will not have any effect. So when we shall be calculating the Trinia for the market, simply take expected return for the market minus the risk, because the beta factor for the market is always equal to 1. Then, if you remember, we have also said that this part is the same as the risk premium. So, expected return for the market minus the risk-free rate is the same as what? The risk premium. We had seen that when we were coming up with the security market line equation. We had seen that. So now we make another final, we can now conclude that the final decision will be made as follows. 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 So the first dash is that if the premium of the portfolio is greater than the premium for the market. So if the premium for the portfolio is greater than the premium for the market, then it indicates superior performance. So if the premium of the portfolio is greater than the premium for the market, then it indicates superior performance. Then the second dash, we also say that if the premium of the portfolio is less than the premium for the market. So if the premium for the portfolio is less than the premium for the market, then it indicates inferior performance. Then it indicates inferior performance. Then it indicates inferior performance. The last dash is that if the premium of the portfolio is equal to the premium for the market. So if the premium of the portfolio is equal to the premium for the market, then it indicates efficient performance. Then it indicates efficient performance. Then another paragraph, we add there by noting that this index operates effectively. This index operates effectively. It operates effectively under the assumptions of CAPM. It operates effectively under the assumptions of CAPM. It operates effectively under the assumptions of CAPM. So we go back to that question we have just done now, Roman letter 2. That question for May 2017, question number 2, part B. You want to go to the Roman letter 2, but they have indicated there as Roman letter 3, so you change it to Roman letter 2, the Trinius method. So you want to check that Roman letter 2. The same question we have just done in the few minutes. Now we want to go to the Roman letter 2. So we shall arrange it in a way, because when you look at that question, the beta factor is not provided. The beta coefficient or factor is not provided. But I've given you some formulas on how to calculate the beta factor. So you need to recall the 3 formulas and get the one to apply. So this question has given the correlation with the market. So there is the one that you are applying in the last question, the correlation coefficient with the market, then the standard deviation, then we divide by the standard deviation for the market. So one challenge in the question, there was no beta factor. So we need to know how to compute the beta factor, then we apply that. So in our arrangement, we shall be having the column for the portfolio. Then the beta factor of, let's say, security X. If I want to compute the beta factor of X, because they are a portfolio PQRSTU, so I will use a unique. So the beta for, say, security X. X will be representing each one of them. X will be representing each one of them. So it will be given by correlation coefficient between X and the market. So yesterday we did something of that type, where we are taking the correlation coefficient between the project and the market portfolio. So that's now what we have at that point. Then multiplied by the standard deviation of segment X. Then remember, we were dividing by the standard deviation for the market. So that was what the last formula we used in the other question to get the beta factor. You are getting the correlation coefficient between the project and the market portfolio. Then you multiply by the standard deviation of the project. Then we are dividing by the standard deviation for the market. So we shall simply be taking the correlation coefficient between each project and the market. Then the standard deviation for the project. Then divide by the standard deviation for the market. Once we get that beta factor, now you come here, you get the linear of the portfolio, where we have said it is expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate. Now divide by the beta factor of that portfolio. Then now you will do the ranking. Now you will do the ranking from that arrangement. So that question had no beta factor. So that beta factor is what I've mentioned as X. So we shall see how to get it, then we apply it. So we need to do that arrangement before we comprehensively answer the question. The item that was missing is the beta factor. So we must get the beta factor before we compute the linear of each portfolio. So starting with the first one. You see, the first one is portfolio P. The first one is portfolio P. So portfolio P, you want to get the beta factor for portfolio P. What are we given as the correlation coefficient of portfolio P with the market returns? So we take 0.81 like that. Then we multiply by the standard deviation of that project P. They gave us 21. Then we divide by the standard deviation for the market. Are you able to see market return somewhere? Yes. Then what is the standard deviation for that market return? They are given you 12. So divide by the 12. Divide by the 12. So round it off to two decimal places for the uniformity part, so that all of us get the same results. Uniformity part come up with that. 1.8. So we get 1.82. So now we come at this point. How to compute the linear of the portfolio. So expected return is the average annual return. Portfolio P is 18 point what? So take 18.6 minus the risk-free rate, which is given us 9. Now divide by 1.82. So we compute for all of them before we do the ranking. We calculate for all of them before we do the ranking. So now we go to the next portfolio. Now we go to the next portfolio. So the next portfolio should be portfolio Q. The next portfolio should be portfolio Q. So they had given you correlation with the market return to 0 point. So we multiply by, what is the standard deviation? Also divide by what? Divide by 12. So that one is giving us around which year? When you round off to two decimal places, result what? Let us have two decimal places so that we have uniform results. So average return 14.8. Also subtract 9, divide by 0.98. So now you do the same for RST and U. RST, also EQRST, and also U. So you do the rank, because that is now our part of the question. So the one in the highest rank is class number 1. So that now will form our part C of the question. So that ranking now form the part C of the same question. So part C, they say that compare the rankings using the two methods in part B above and explain two reasons behind the difference. So number one, is this still the same? Because we have done the two questions just now. Number one is the same. How about number two? Number two is different, isn't it? Then number three. Number three is also different. So that's now the base of your part C. They are asking you, you need now to rank them above and explain. So the ranking is not the same. So why are they not the same order? The ranking is not in the same order. So they want you to explain the reason why the order of the ranking is not the same. So part C, we can comment that. Part C, we can comment that the order of the ranking, of the two methods is not the same. The order of the ranking of the two methods is not the same due to the following reasons. It's not the same due to the following reasons. It is not the same due to the following reasons. So number one is that, you can see the denominator. For the sharps, it was the standard deviation. You remember that. But for the linear, it is the beta factor. That's now the major difference because the numerator is the same. You remember the numerator is expected return for the portfolio minus the risk premium. But the denominator under this method is the beta factor. The other method, it was the standard deviation. So number one is that the Sharpe's method use the standard deviation. The Sharpe method use the standard deviation. The Sharpe method use the standard deviation. While the Trinier method use the beta factor. While the Trinier method use the beta factor. So that's the major difference because of the measure of the risk. When you are using the Sharpe, it was the standard deviation. When you are using the Trinier, it is the beta factor. Then number two is that, the reason number two is that the Sharpe's measure operates under the assumptions of the portfolio theory. The Sharpe's measure operates under the assumptions of the portfolio theory. It operates under the assumptions of the portfolio theory. While the Trinier method operates under the assumptions of CAPM. It operates under the assumptions of CAPM. So that was now the explanation for the reason why the ranking has changed. The order is not remaining the same. So we go back to the other question, which was November 2020. We go back to the question for November 2020. We also check the one for November 2020. Also check the one for November 2020. It was question number 2, part A. It was on page 28. It was on page 28. It was on page 28. So now we answer the Roman letter 2. The Roman letter 2 was the Trinius alpha. So we have already done the question. So we now go to that question 2 part A. We have done the Roman letter 3, the sharp index. So we now go to the Roman letter 2, the Trinius alpha. So when we use the Trinia, so there they gave you all the information. You only need to compute. You are given all the details. We only need to compute. We only need to do the computation. So what do we do? We have the portfolio or the fund, the portfolio. Then the Trinia of the portfolio is simply expected return of the portfolio minus the risk-free rate divided by the beta factor of the portfolio. So there were simply two funds. The first one is Omega. The first fund there was Omega. When it comes to Omega, that expected return was the realized return. It was 13. Minus the risk-free rate was 8. But you can see the beta factor is what? Yeah, so divide by 1. Then you do the same for beta. So this one, it is 18 minus 8. But this one we divide by which here? Here you see a negative number. It was positive. That one was just the machine that was printing. What's the comparison? Yeah, just ignore that negative part. It is the machine that had an issue at that point. So beta factor is given as what? So divide by 2. So that one they did ask about the market. And like the Roman that they had also asked about the market. But this one they didn't ask about the market. So just compare it. So if they require you to rank, you now already know how to do the ranking. If they require you to do the ranking, you know how it's done. So now I want us to go to the one for the last city. The Roman letter. Now check the one for August 2022. August 2022. August 2022. August 2022. So we are now on the Roman letter 2, the Trinius performance measure. We are on the Trinia performance measure. We are on the Trinius performance measure. So when it comes to the Trinia performance measure, comes to the Trinia performance measure. So the beta factor was not given. The beta factor was not given. The beta factor was not given. So for the beta factor, first we shall have the column for the portfolio. Then to get the beta of, let's say, security X. The other question had given you correlation coefficient, but this one has given you what? Covariance. This one has given you the covariance. So to get the beta factor, you simply take the covariance between X and the market. It is the covariance between X and the market. So divide by the standard deviation of x multiplied by the standard deviation of, the variance of the matrix. It is the variance of the matrix. It is the variance of the matrix. So I'd say that this formula comes from the other formula. It will lead to the other formula that we have used. It will lead to the other formula that we have used. So normally, just a brief explanation before we continue. Remember the correlation coefficient. When you want to compute correlation coefficient between x and the market, when you want to get the correlation coefficient between x and the market, it is normally given by the covariance between x and the market. We divide by the standard deviation of x multiplied by the standard deviation for the market. So if I make the covariance to be the subject, it is the same as correlation coefficient between x and the market. I multiply by the standard deviation of x. I also multiply the standard deviation for the market. So that now where there is the covariance, I replace it with this. Where there is the covariance. You see where there is this covariance? I replace it. So maybe I can now do away with this because I want to explain this part. So that beta factor of x, which is the covariance between x and the market, we divide by the variance for the market. So where there is the covariance, I replace with this part, which is correlation coefficient between x and the market multiplied by the standard deviation for x, the standard deviation for the market. So this one is the variance for the market. Variance of the market is the same as the standard deviation for the market squared. That's why you see the formula you have applied in the previous question. So this one and this we cancelled off. Yeah. That's why it was correlation coefficient between the project and the market, more of the standard deviation for the project divided by the standard deviation for the market. You can remember that in the previous question. This is how we got the beta factor in the previous question. So it is just coming from this one. It is simply coming. So it depends on the information provided in the question. So in the question, the other question had not given you the covariance, but instead it gave you the correlation coefficient and also the standard deviation for the portfolio and the standard deviation for the market. That's why we used this one. But for this particular question, they gave you what? The covariance. So now to get our beta factor, we should be applying that question. Then now you compute the trilinear. The trilinear of the portfolio will be expected return of the portfolio minus the risk reward. Now you divide by the beta factor for the portfolio. So this part, it is there in your notes. If you get the notes where we started computing the beta factor, you will get those formulas. But for now, I'm simply justifying what we have about that question. So we come up with this arrangement. Now come up with this particular arrangement. So we start off with A. We start off with so that A we got to. So what are you given as the covariance? 0.0088. There are 2 zeros and 88. Yeah. So variance for the market. Declare the standard deviation of the market. No, not number 2. The standard deviation of the market is given as 10. So is it abnormal? which you have. There are hundreds here. Square, we get 100. So it is the variance for the market. But the question gave me the standard. So we square the standard deviation to get the variance. But that figure is abnormal. But we just use it the way it is needed because we have no choice. Mapata ngapi? So that's sometimes when the examiner becomes biased. So imekuja ngapi? There are how many zeros?
5. So that's a big.
There are 4 after the decimal point, number 5.
5. That's 4. 6. Raise the point.
There are 4 zeros here.
Yes.
Then 8, 8.
Yes.
So then we just use the information the way it is given. So when it comes now to that point, what are we given as expected return for the portfolio A? 17.55. So we get 17.55. Risk-free rate was which figure? 7. It was 7. So divide by 0.00. So the variance for the market, just square the standard deviation. The variance for the market, simply square the standard deviation. But what figure do we get? 193. $119,886.
Yes.
Yeah, we just compute it that way because we have no choice rather than to use the information. Remember the formula yesterday when we were using in the previous question was 5. So you are getting appropriate figure. Yeah, but now this one is a very abnormal, especially this one. It is abnormal, but we have no choice just to present for the purpose of learning, because probably that's what they were marking. We go to B. So B, it is meant to be. $0.075. 0.0750. Also divide by 100. There are how many zeros? 3. After the decimal place. 7. This one should be 2. This one is 0.075. So to divide by 100. Yeah. Sorry. This one.
Yeah.
Nakasal manani. I can just vary this. So anyway, we come at this point whereby expected return for the portfolio was 13.26 minus 7 divided by 0.007. And we do the same for C. So C, it is 0.01. That we have 4 zeros. So it is 9.34. Then we also divide by that. How about if we use the other formula? Let us just for confirmation. The other formula in our nation, how to get the correlation coefficient. On how to get the correlation coefficient. Let me just confirm the first one and see what we get. So the standard deviation for X multiplied by the standard deviation for the market. So your covariance tumeipata ikiwa ni 0.00. So the standard deviation for X was the standard deviation for that was the start. And the one for the market is still there. Yeah. Anyway, maybe there was a mistake in typing of that covariance, because the one for the question we did yesterday, remember the one we did yesterday? The one for the pilot paper. The one for the pilot, they are given the correlation coefficient, but they were reasonable. They were reasonable, but these ones, they are abnormal. But we do it just the way we have done it. So that's now on the 3 years performance measure. How we could go about to get the values. So the time remaining will not allow me to go to the measure number 3, because measure number 3 was supposed to be the Jensen's performance measure. So when we meet now in the next class, remember we should go to the measure number 3, which is the Jensen's performance measure. So we can stop there for today, because we cannot be able to do anything much on that performance measure. So let us stop there for now.